Hello there, and welcome to Gooner U, where there are no degrees because the learning never stops. I'm Dove, a TA here at Gooner U, and my friend Keith is our stalwart distinguished professor of Arsenal and football studies. Enter our classroom as we discuss the week's news involving Arsenal, Premier League, Champions League, and international football, all from the perspective of a couple of Americans. This week, we faced Atlético de Madrid in the Champions League, and Crystal Palace, also at home, in the Premier League. Hello, Keith.
Hello, Dove. How many times did you stand in front of the mirror and practice that? Atlético de Madrid.
It's my middle school and high school Spanish, some of which we shared, actually, despite being a year apart in school, coming back to me.
You're going to have to, because it's the Castilian Spanish, you have to get a little extra lisp in there.
That is not in my wheelhouse. That's not forthcoming.
It's funny. I have students and I drop random Spanish words with them. And of course, they're, mostly Mexican, a lot of like Central and Latin American. And it's funny, they will make fun of me for having a lisp, which is funny because if you speak to anyone who's from Spain, they're like, wow, you sound like such a Latin American. And
yeah. I heard about that recently. There's some cool new live translation features built into Apple's AirPods Pro and maybe other AirPods, but definitely the new AirPods Pro. And the translation is only certain languages that are supported. And Spanish is clearly one of them, but it is like South American Spanish, and people who, or maybe from Spain, it's only one of those two. And trying it out, I've heard with someone who only knows the other one's like, oh, that's weird. It's like, I know what it's saying, but it's using vocabulary that like we don't use around here, that kind of thing.
How about saying, I wonder if it's a bit like watching a British TV show.
Probably.
Just go,
but without the accent.
Yeah, just go pop a boot in the lorry, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Take the lift up past the ground floor.
I tried explaining the Castilian accent to my son a week or two ago when Aretha Balaga came up for some reason. And is the whole thing about, what was it, King Edward or something? Was that apocryphal, like him having a lisp? And
I have no idea. I doubt it. I think it's just, it's sort of the same way. I imagine that, British English translated into American English, that we were their country bumpkin cousins, and that's just how we talk.
Yeah. Yeah, so getting back to Arsenal and the stuff that we usually talk about on the show. So last week we had a penalty called on the field and then overturned after Anthony Taylor. I don't remember which official it was anymore. But after the on-field official then was called to the screen and reviewed it, he then overturned his own call. And in talking about it with you last week and in listening back to that conversation later, I wondered if there's a difference in practice between, because we talked about the clear and obvious standard, right? Where it needs to be a clear and obvious error to be overturned. Does that only apply to when the VAR, the fifth official, is overturning an on-the-field call? Is that not the case when the on-field official sees video and sees something that, had he seen it in real time, would have affected his decision? Are there different standards at play?
So my understanding is, and I could be wrong about this, and I'm sure people in the comments will correct me, but my understanding is the referee, at least in the Premier League system, has the final call. So what you'll hear people objecting to in this is the idea that the VAR is, I don't want to say badgering, but really trying to convince. Now, obviously, they have to have a certain level of convincing to tell the referee, no, you need to come over to the screen and look at this. But at a certain point, but the referee ultimately has the final discretion on the call that's made. And so it's up to him to determine clear and obvious and the error and all of that. Now, again, how much, and because we have some of these conversations now, they're recorded, there's some people are tracking them, like they'll send those conversations, or, there'll be that back and forth. I mean, the VAR is also trying to explain, here's what I want you to see. Here's what I think you need to see. But in that sense, ultimately, it's the on-field referee, as I understand it, who has the final say in the decision. So he's the one who watched the video and decides, oh, okay, yeah, that was a mistake, or no, I've seen it, I stand by my decision.
And that's all out the window when it comes to offside. That's a separate conversation.
Right, because that falls under the category of clear and obvious because of the semi-automated offside. And even back when they were drawing the lines, as as imperfect a science as that was, the point was it was trying to make that an objective decision. Same with when you see they use the Hawkeye technology for, did the ball cross the goal line, right? Either it did or it didn't. And we rely on the technology that we can look and say, yes, goal. Like there's no judgment in that. Even with all these, like the way we disagreed about that penalty last week, right? That is a sign that it is a judgment call.
Sure.
And that ultimately is where we get to, we've seen some instances where, like for clear and obvious, a penalty is given, and then you watch the replay and go, wait a minute, there's no contact there at all. That's not a penalty. That's the kind of thing, clear and obvious. Or ideally, that's what everyone thinks of when they think of clear and obvious. Unfortunately, so many of these aren't so clear and obvious. There is a level of interpretation given to them.
Right. All right.
And in a sense, you're never getting rid of that.
Oh, sure. Definitely. There's always going to be the human element. One other thing we talked about last week was World Cup tickets and how to get them and how not to get them. Yeah. And we had another email that went out to anyone who has previously tried to get tickets. I got this toward the end of last week. And apparently starting today, as we record, October 27th, it's a Monday, through Friday, October 31st, Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody. Through the end of the month, that's right. It is the next round for you to be able to put your hat in the ring, to be able to have an opportunity to buy tickets. So you're not giving them credit card info, you're not actually buying the tickets, but you're entered into a raffle, and if your name is picked, you get to buy tickets. And let me emphasize what they said in the email. It does not matter whether you do it today or on Friday or anywhere in between. Everybody is entered into the same hat. There's no priority given to anyone who's like the first at the buzzer. So. Yeah,
it's basically, as it seems like, the same way they did the drawing, only the first drawing was only for people who had Visa cards. Not enter the country Visa, but Visa, the credit card company. And now this one is apparently more open to everyone. So presumably there are more of the tickets on sale. Obviously there are more tickets on sale, but I presume it's a slightly larger pool this time around. I would expect that we're going to keep seeing these kinds of draws until we get to the World Cup itself. And one of the things they've talked about starting to be available are the packages where you can buy a certain number of games in a particular city, or buying the packages where you follow a particular team.
Right.
So if you're really interested in tracking the progress of, I don't know, Jordan or Uzbekistan or Brazil or whoever, you can start to buy those. I believe you have the opportunity to start buying those tickets as well. And there are limits to the number. I think they said you can buy to any number of games, but you're limited in the number of tickets per game that you can buy, I think is what it said.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't read that far. I have not submitted myself. I intend to soon. Hopefully I don't forget.
That was an oversight this morning, which will be corrected. And again, reminder, they will continue to be a ticket resale market throughout, even up during the World Cup. If you don't get your hands on a ticket before the World Cup begins, that does not mean you are not necessarily going to a World Cup game.
Right. Well noted. You mentioned Brazil as a country that one might want to follow through the World Cup, and it's funny you mentioned that because Arsenal has a few Brazilian players. We actually noted last week that Big Gabby seemed a little off after returning from the international break, a little sloppier than we would usually expect of him. And I wondered about that as I received an email from Arsenal this past week informing me that the Emirates is going to be hosting a Brazil-Senegal friendly in the middle of November 15th. I wondered if that was part of it. Are they trying to make sure that their Brazilian players don't need to fly as far all over the world to try and keep the jet lag to a minimum to keep their Arsenal performance up?
That would be quite a pick. I mean, Brazil likes to travel, especially now, given qualifying is over. They like to travel because they can draw big crowds, and the same reason a lot of teams like to play in the United States. You can make a lot of money in those. And Brazil is played in the Emirates a bunch of times. There was a push, I think, shortly after it opened to sort of make it their European headquarters when they play friendlies in Europe. They would be in the Emirates. Arsenal's had a few Brazilians here and there. Obviously, we have all the Gabbies now. But I think it's just because it's in Europe, so yeah, it'll be less travel for a friendly. You don't need to necessarily go halfway around the world to South America, or even last time they were in East Asia. They're going to play Senegal, who's also again basically the same time zone. So quality matchup. It'll draw. I'm sure it'll pack the stadium, and and then the Gabbies don't have to go very far. Right? Whichever ones end up getting called up this time.
Right. It's been a while, but it's that time again to enter the messy room. So the playoffs are upon us for MLS, and I actually watched about 2/3. I joined, so Miami had their first match of the playoffs last week, and I caught from like right before halftime through the end, I believe. I started just after the first goal was scored, and oh man, looking at the replay, it was something. It was a diving header by Messi to get the score rolling, and and I think he ended up with the second goal toward the end to cap that match off. That was one that I had in the background, which I don't do for Arsenal, but I do for Cubs and Miami and other sports that I sometimes watch. But it got me wondering, though. I noticed they're talking about it being the first in a best of 3 series. I was like, wait a second. Is this Major League Soccer or Major League Baseball? A series of 3? I mean, the closest that we see in other competitions is in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup or Champions League knockout rounds, where you'll have a 2-leg competition and you'll have a home match and an away match, and then the aggregate score decides it with penalties if you need to be a tiebreaker. But this is weird, a best of 3 where the goal difference doesn't matter. So Miami ended up winning that one like 3-0, I think. I think they may have gotten, it was against Nashville. I think he got 1 goal by the end. Who's the player who I'm thinking of? He's Henny Mukhtar.
Mukhtar there.
He's really good. He did end up getting a goal, I think, by the end of that game, I think. So it was like 3-1 or something was the final score. But it doesn't matter, because all that matters is the result, the win for Miami. That's, to my eyes, the only soccer league that does such a thing. And I wondered your thoughts, because you participate in spectatorship of so many different competitions and soccer and other sports. Yeah. What do you think of this 3-game series idea?
So MLS is this kind of league that sort of continually seems to reinvent itself every couple of years, by which in terms of how many teams even make the playoffs and what is the format when they get there. The best of 3 series, and they basically said this when it happened. I was kind of surprised how direct they were about this, was basically started when they started the contract with Apple TV, because Apple wanted more playoff games. And it is the only round they do this, by the way. It is only this so they have the wild card round, because sure, why not have the extra midweek games? They're having this round 1, or the first round, which is best 2 out of 3. And then after that, it is one-off conference semis, conference finals, and then the MLS Cup is all 1 game. So it's very strange. The other thing about this is, you talked about it's not the aggregate score. They play 90 minutes. If they're tied after 90 minutes, they go directly to a penalty shootout.
For each game.
And the winner wins that game.
Right.
They win the penalty shootout, and so they win the game. And you can, New York City advanced. We won 2 penalty shootouts against Cincinnati last year, knocked out a better team. So it's an interesting. Miami was the Supporters Shield winner last year, got knocked out in the opening round by the 8 seed Atlanta.
Right.
It does create a little more chaos, which, fine, whatever. It's this is how we do things in American sports. We're totally okay with this. But yes, it is a little bizarre. They did for a number of years, did the 2-leg thing, and then got rid of it because teams didn't like it, and there was a lot of games, and they come back. Again, I've been aware of MLS basically since it started, but I would say I closely followed the league when New York City started in 2015, and I think this is like not counting the weird COVID year where they just sort of had to make everything up, because who knows how many games anyone had played. But I think this is like the third different playoff structure in the decade I've been closely following the league. So yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. That's all I can say about it. The one thing I have to say I don't like the most is it makes the schedule so weird, really, because they spread the games out so you can watch as many of them as possible. New York City, for example, is going to play tomorrow night, Tuesday, game 1, maybe down in Charlotte. And then their second game 2, will be Saturday actually, I think they'll be in the Bronx. I think, because the Yankees are done, so they'll be able to play in Yankee Stadium. Yeah. And it's like a Tuesday, Saturday, and then I think it's like the following Wednesday. It's such a strange, because they spread them out for the weekend. That's the part where I'm just like,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So it's a little weird. And they'll play through. I believe they'll get through the conference finals before they get to the November international break. No, scratch that. I think they'll get through this round, hit the November international break, and then come back and then finish the rest of the playoffs that way.
Okay. It's interesting.
That's so MLS, I believe is the phrase.
All right, so heading back to Europe, let's go to our Atlético match. So I was also interested to see, I thought it was Atlético Madrid, but there is the of in the middle. So that's interesting. It reminded me, actually, as I think about it, it's kind of like the Oakland Athletics in baseball. Like, I've always thought that was a weird name for a team. Like, well, baseball is an athletic sport. Aren't they all athletics? But I guess it's like, with the other club, Bilbao, that we played a few weeks ago. It's like, I guess this whole, like, just athletic clubs were like 100 or more years ago was just a thing that you formed and you called it that, and the name stuck.
I mean, if to torture the baseball metaphor a little further, it's not any weirder than naming them after your socks. But yes, right. They're an athletic club as opposed to the Royal Club. That's Real Madrid is the Royal Club as opposed to the Athletic Club, which would have been more of the more popular, in terms of open to the masses kind of thing. Still, imagine this being European society, so relatively elitist. But, but yes, Atletico Madrid. Notice without the H, it's Athletic Bilbao. Athletic Bilbao.
Right.
Atletico without that. So.
Yep. But yeah, so we thumped them 4-0 on October 21st last week. That was really something to see. The first thing that I noticed during the match was I really liked their away kit that they were wearing at the Emirates. The blue and yellow accents, I think it was on it. It was a really nice kit that Madrid had.
It was fine. I didn't really think much of it. Their home kit is their red and white stripes, which is of course why we, obviously they didn't wear it. But it's red and white stripes with blue shorts, and usually sort of a very bright, almost bright blue. It's distinctive. I like it. It's one of those when you're playing them like you're playing Atletico Madrid, and they are consistently have been. I mean, since Simeone showed up, has been about the third best team in Spain. They've won La Liga, like the only team outside of the big two to win it in the last 20 years, and they've done it a couple times. They've been very good over the last. Also
worth noting, you mentioned Simeone. I mean, how many father-son coach-player teams are there out there? Like, I saw his son playing against us. That's rare. It's got to be.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen it other instances before, but yeah, it's not very common. Yeah. Well, he does look like him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, you can see him on the field and go, oh yeah, that's his kid. You knew that's his kid. That's definitely him.
Yep. So during the match, I noticed a couple familiar faces from them. The one that I really didn't expect to see was Julian Alvarez. I didn't know when he left Manchester City last season. I didn't know that that's where he went. I didn't know because I'd also seen him play for Argentina when I saw them during the competition. Was it last year?
The Copa.
Copa. That's right. The Copa. Yep. That was cool. He's good.
They are a good team. We could rattle off some of the names they've got on that roster. Antoine Griezmann is another one who's had a really good career. Their keeper Oblak is one of the better ones in the world. They're really good, which makes. I mean, we'll talk about this more in depth in more of a moment. It makes the way we played against them so impressive. They're really good, and we thumped them. And we gave it to them, and not just in that 14-minute stretch where we scored all the goals. We beat them all night long.
Yeah, and thankfully, Ted Lasso and Coach Beard were in attendance to see it.
Always good to see some friendly faces. Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard, of course, well-known Arsenal fan.
Yeah,
I believe he's pulled Sudeikis in. I believe he's actually made Sudeikis an actual gooner.
Sure. And it's especially funny playing Crystal Palace, who I think you've said before is one of the main teams that Richmond is directly based on. So.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you can. I mean, I forget what the name of their stadium in the show is. I mean, it's Selhurst Park. That's that's definitely them. But yes, but we'll save the Palace conversation for later.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That was the other match this week. That wasn't the one that they went to. Yeah.
No, they were. Yeah. No, I believe
matches.
I believe they showed John Bon Jovi was at the Palace.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Mick Jagger was at the. Is it the Fulham game? I think he's from Fulham, or he's from that area of London.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so they really never let off the gas in this match. I mean, that's something that we've talked about before, that we've seen all the time with Arsenal the last couple years, and including matches in this season. They never relented. They just kept on them right through the end.
It's interesting because a lot of the talk coming into this game, Atleti has a reputation for being a scrappy defensive team, really kind of drags you down to their level and it kind of mucks it up, and very strong defensively, beats you on the counter or with set pieces. And so there was a lot of talk coming in about the whole game of anti-football and how Simeone and Arteta will do play a dour 0-0. But I mean, Atletico is one of those teams that is not going to necessarily, against us, try to sit 10 back and dare us to try and score. They were willing to play a little bit, and boy, that was not a good idea. We came at them. Even Simeone, who I like, one of the highest compliments he'll give is basically just said they competed hard against us all night.
Yeah.
Which is like, from him, that's about the nicest thing he's ever said about anyone, probably, including perhaps his own son. That's what it's like to play against them. And we met them. There's some of us was talking the pregame. It was the semifinals of the Europa League. Let's say, was that 2017, 2016? Yeah, they were tough. They're tough. They are always tough to play. And yeah, and we'll talk about this in general. This is such an impressive result throughout. We were all over them from the jump. Really, the only place, right, where this kind of almost didn't work was early in the second half when Alvarez cracked one off the crossbar.
Yeah, what a close call.
The hell of a strike.
Yeah, from long range, and so close. Thank goodness. The game would have been very, very different had that been a few inches lower.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were kind of coming out a little bit. I think that was probably their strongest stretch of the game for Atleti, was early in the second half. They kind of used halftime to kind of, get themselves back into form, find themselves, get back on, try to play their game a little bit, generated an opportunity, hits the crossbar. And they are, again, the kind of team that if they go up 1-0, there's going to be, they are going to play 10 men behind the ball, and they are going to be very difficult to break down. And so we were a little fortunate in that instance to not concede that goal, and then followed it up by just opening we've talked about that for a couple weeks, right? Once you break through, it just starts to flow sometimes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that first goal. So this was from a Declan Rice free kick, but it was like kind of diagonally away from the corner of the 18-yard box. So similar distance to a corner kick, a little bit closer, a little bit further infield, but up the field also. And he just did what we do on free kicks. He curled it in, and Gabby got his head in there, diving header from him, got it in. It was nice.
And honestly, probably the most surprising of the goals. Again, the one thing you would expect an Atleti team to do well is defend, especially defend set pieces. And he ran free. There was nobody touched him. How does that happen?
That happened throughout this match. Saka was slipping free of his defender the whole time also. Like they're having trouble with a couple of us.
Yeah, Saka was a monster in this game. I mean, it's incredible. He doesn't end up on the score sheet at all, and he might have been there. I think he was probably our best player in the whole game. Just again, torturing the guy he's facing out there in the left back position. Constantly dangerous, generating opportunities. He loves playing in the Champions League. He's definitely a Champions League player, which frankly, in terms of Champions League players, how about Martinelli?
Yeah, so the next one was a really nice pass from Miles Lewis-Skelly right over the line, made sure that Martinelli was onside when he made the pass. And yeah, Martinelli tapped it right into the corner. That was so nice.
That was, I mean, That was probably the nicest. That was not probably. That was the nicest goal of the entire game.
Looking at what we had to compare it to coming next.
Well, I mean, as you said, glides. Carves his way through the middle of the field. Just a great run from Lewis Skelly, and then he hits Martinelli. I mean, that's an Henry finish. Like that's that coming in from the left, curling it around the keeper.
Yeah.
Oof.
One touch right on the inside of the post. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Real-time follow-up, by the way. I called it a diving header from Gabriel. That's overstating a little bit. He kind of stooped over a little bit. It wasn't really diving, but
he stayed on his feet. Yeah.
He stayed on his feet, exactly. Yeah. But anyway. But the keeper got a finger to it. Like, that was why it ended up hitting the post instead of going in without hitting the post. The keeper did get a finger to it as he dove down to try and stop it, but couldn't push it far enough wide and barely altered its trajectory as like a fingertip.
Not enough, yeah. And then again.
And then this was awkward. It landed at Gyökeres's feet, like inside the 6-yard box. He kind of hopped around, trotted a little bit before it settled. But, when all was said and done, he did the job. He got it in.
And he watched, and this was sort of the commentary for some others. He almost seemed apologetic in his celebration. Like, you expect a goal, you score a goal, you're exuberant. Of course, the crowd was going completely bonkers at that point. Right. Oh, that was 3 goals in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he kind of eventually, did the thing. And, but yeah, he was it. But I mean, how many times have we talked about that with a guy like him and with any kind of striker, right? Sometimes you just need one to go in. And it doesn't matter how it goes in. You look at as they say, you look in the box score, and it's just a goal. It doesn't say what it looked like. It doesn't say how ugly it was. It doesn't say how many people had to touch it before it finally got to him. Mm-hmm. But he bundles it in, and it's 3-0. And at that point, obviously, the game is over, or at least the route is clearly on.
Yep. But they weren't done.
Nope.
Thanks to Gyökeres's right hip.
Yeah, kind of pushes that one in a little bit, and that one celebrated a little more. And again, it's so fun to watch the team sometimes because you watch the way they celebrate, and they clearly enjoy when the team scores. Like, there's really you can tell there's a good environment, a good atmosphere, and you don't need that. Like, there are plenty of teams throughout the years who have been successful, even though the players tolerated each other or sometimes even openly despised one another, but they both were willing to do their best to win. But you saw that. I mean, this one, he runs over, he does the celebration. And you look, Big Gabby comes over, is kind of doing this as well. Martinelli comes over, he's got his hands over his eyes. Like, I think they show that my favorite celebrant, and I forget which one of the four it was, is Saliba. Because apparently in one, it wasn't Martinelli's goal, but he's standing right by Martinelli when he goes in. He just turns around to Martinelli and just slaps him right from behind.
I think that was Gabriel. Because I'm watching the replay as we talk about this. And I think it was Gabriel's first goal. He slapped him on the backside.
There was a stretch for a while, and I think Ben White was involved in it when this season he played regularly, which is kind of a loaded phrase there, where they would score goals and they come over and start slapping the goal scorer's head, which is I don't maybe not do that.
Yeah, that doesn't seem very fun.
But they were. Yeah, I mean, you could just see how much fun they're having with each other, and it's good. This is the pressure they're under, the intensity of the games they're playing, the pressure they're under to have success, right? Because it's the one thing they don't have is that trophy. But it's good that they have that kind of sense of togetherness, that sort of feel with each other. So many of them have in a lot of ways grown up with each other. They are still relatively young as a group. And so to see them have that kind of collective celebratory feel, and obviously, yes, this is a game that sets up for it when you drop 4 goals in 14 minutes and you just batter a really good athlete, well, maybe not up to their standards ATLÉTI team, but definitely a really good team still. An excellent performance, and really kind of puts the marker down as, and I know we'll talk about the table a little bit later. Yeah, Arsenal's near the top of the table. Obviously, they're one of the favorites to win. They took one of the better teams in the competition to the woodshed. There is a very small list of teams who can win the Champions League, and we're on it.
Yeah. So this fourth goal, as well as the first goal, and so 2 out of the 4 from this match, and then 3 out of the 5 of the week were from set pieces. Like, this is continuing to be a thing for us. I'm not complaining.
Ole, ole. Who cares, man?
It's working.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit too, right? Like, I mean, I kind of mockingly made fun of City for playing defensively, but how many times have we faced opposition where they sit 9 men in the box, 10 men behind the ball? Like, that's really hard to break down.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I'm not going to complain about it, because obviously for those teams, their job is not to be entertaining. Their job is to try to win, to get points, and that's the best way they have to do it. But that means we have to, that set pieces are an advantage for us to be able to regularly generate goals from those kinds of opportunities. I'm certainly, I mean, not that anybody's saying we should apologize for it, but I'm not going to apologize for that. Our job is to win too. And why not? Why aren't you better at set pieces?
Well, exactly. Everyone has the same opportunity to be good at set pieces.
Right.
Yep.
So set piece again. Ole, ole.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, this was, I think by the time all was said and done, we had given up 1 shot on goal, I think, this match, right?
I think so, yeah.
And that was after a run of 2 matches in the Premier League with no shots on goal, which you pointed out last week before I'd heard any of the commentary pointing that out. That was pressing to me. That became a major talking point throughout this match, because it was late in the match that we conceded that shot on goal. But yeah, that was, and again, I think in Crystal Palace, I think it was the 1 shot on goal or something. Like, it was really something.
Yeah, I mean, we've conceded 3 goals all season.
Mm-hmm.
And you look in the Champions League, we are 3 zeros in the goals away, the goals against column. The only other team with a 0 in that column is Inter Milan. Big surprise, an Italian team defending really well. Which, by the way, we're going to play them at the end. I think towards the end. I want to say it's match day 7, maybe, of the league phase.
Okay.
We're going to go to the San Siro again.
Right.
I would very much like to beat them after last year. But they are. Yeah, they're. We're really good defensively, and that's such a firm foundation to be on. And you look at the goals that we gave up. There was that worldie of a free kick from Szoboszlai. There's Erling Haaland, who scores against everybody except Aston Villa. Save it for later. We gave a set piece goal to Newcastle. So, like, that's it all season so far. And yeah, I mean, just a sterling defensive performance, and it lets you do so much when you're that solid and that reliable in the back. It really is a good foundation. It make the other team feels like they have to do so much work to score a goal.
Well, yeah, they do.
Because they do. Yeah.
Yeah. The low point I felt of this match was in the first half, I believe. Let me double check that as I'm saying it. But there was a moment when the ball was knocked from around the midfield mark all the way toward our byline. Raya came out of the 18-yard box to kind of shepherd it out to give himself a goal kick. Only they were in hot pursuit. I forget which player it was followed the ball, but all of a sudden it became a contentious situation where Raya had to kick the ball out, and he kicked it over the sideline for a throw-in instead of kicking it over the byline for a corner kick. And they ended up taking a quick throw, and he was off his line, and they very nearly got that in. That was not like, that was nervy, like almost as much as the Alvarez shot that came a bit later. That was like, oh crap, because that was not too wide of the goal, and the goal was wide open when they took that.
Yeah, I'm reminded of, I'm flashing back to when we beat Hull City in the FA Cup, and oh my gosh, who was in goal for that one? Is it Almunia? Whoever our keeper was, ran off the line to play the ball, was like way out of position. The ball gets cleared to one of the Hull player, and from distance, like throws it on goal, and it required one of our guys to track back and clear it off the line. It was like, what is happening? It's one of the weirder ones I've ever seen. Yeah, that was again. I mean, we almost kind of it's almost understated, right? How good Raya's been.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. That was a big oops, and
atypical for him, clearly. Yes.
Yeah. Again, sort of the same thing with the Alvarez near miss. I mean, obviously we played really well, and I feel like the result was deserved. And even if they had scored in either of those chances, I feel like we were playing well enough. We probably would have still gotten a result. But yeah, I mean, you go down 1-0 on a 1-0 on a moment like that, and goals change games. So
Yeah, it worked out, but that was tense. All right. Crystal Palace. So this match occurred yesterday as we recording on Monday. This is a Sunday match. We ended up winning by a 1-0 margin, 1-0 to the Arsenal. It was nervy at times. We were not in as good a form as we were against ATLÉTI. One thing that I noticed right off the bat was we had some of the sloppiness that we had like last week when we first returned from the international break. Just passes not hitting their marks and bad giveaways, and just kind of even our corner kicks that we took, typically, especially from Declan Rice. I mean, you expect them all to go right where they need to in the box because they just do so much of a time. But his first corner kick was way short at the near post. Trossard's, when Rice was subbed off later, Trossard took a corner kick. The first one that he took from Rice's side went in the other direction and went like way beyond the far post. But luckily, both of them ended up dialing it in. And, we had some good ones from them, too, that, either did or nearly generated a goal. The sloppiness was a big problem for us.
I mean, we were pretty sloppy. I will also say, though, I thought Palace probably played us about as well as anyone has this year. They're very structured. They're very solid defensively. They've got a lot of good players. Mark Guehi, Liverpool very nearly bought him at the end of the transfer window. Ismail Sarr, obviously Eddie Nketiah. Jean-Philippe Mateta is a dangerous player. There's Chris Richards, the American defender, did a good job. There's a lot of talent on that team. And we are, and this is going to sound insulting, but I don't mean it to. We are living in the golden age of Crystal Palace football, having just won the FA Cup and the Community Shield, which involved them beating both Manchester City and Liverpool in this calendar year. They drew 2-2 at the Emirates last year. This is not a bad team, and were we sloppy at points? Yeah, this was definitely not our strongest performance. I think there may have been a little bit of a come down from the high of the midweek Champions League game. But at the same time, that's a dangerous team. There are a lot of times I think they were just in the perfect position to deal with our passes. And were able to, and were very direct in their counterattacks going the other way. And so I thought we were... overall, we played well. I think we were at 80% possession for most of the first half. But once again, what did it ultimately take to break through?
Avereci
set piece. Yeah. Well, yes, and in this case. Well, but think about it, right? For Eze, of course, acquired from Crystal Palace. He was such a key figure in them winning those trophies, their first ever trophies in the club's history. Winning the FA Cup, winning the Community Shield.
It was funny. So yeah, definitely by a set piece, yes, as noted. But no, when it comes to Eze scoring, this is something that the commentators were talking about for the first 20 minutes or so before the goal scored. Is like, he's looking to get his first Premier League goal for Arsenal. Today would be a great day to do it, and it's the kind of thing that like a skeptic might say leads to proof that it's all rigged or something.
Yeah.
Right? But not that I'm trying to posit that it actually is, but it's almost like too hard to believe. We win 1-0 and the one goal is scored by the player we just acquired from Crystal Palace, scoring his first goal for us in the league. That's pretty poetic.
And sometimes it works out that way. And of course you see it as does the usual. He does not celebrate the goal. But you got to think, man, he's got to, I mean, obviously as a, having grown up in the Arsenal Academy and all of that, being a longtime fan, you got to imagine that the emotions that have got to be there for that moment. And, to keep it in like that, and the Palace fans, I think, were generally appreciative of all that he did. The obvious counterpoint is the West Ham fans who have been booing Declan Rice pretty mercilessly since he joined Arsenal, which is frankly a little churlish given what he actually accomplished for them while he was there. The Palace fans haven't quite done that, but
yeah. In contrast, I mean, we also saw when Eddie Nketiah came on, he got a huge ovation from the crowd. I mean, we didn't look at him that way, even though he went to. I mean, obviously, it's not the same as Declan Rice as captain of a team leaving or anything, but yeah, I mean, there's no need for that.
I mean, I think if Eddie had scored, I think he would have. I think he would have been. It would have been a subdued response, which would have been interesting, given he came on late, and a goal there would have been a massive result to get the draw. Would have been a massive result for Palace. But yeah, it's just kind of that interesting thing that we've talked about before, right? It's just sort of considered ungentlemanly to celebrate scoring against your old club,
right? Yeah. No, and I get that. That makes sense. That's a very classy way to go about it. Well, let's talk about the goal itself, though. So this was a foul committed against Saka. I forget by who, but it was a pretty careless foul. Steps on his foot. He goes down near the box. So this is a Declan Rice free kick in a corner kick-like position, only further up and in the field. And Eze literally comes flying in what I found out later is called a hitch kick, which looked to me like the kind of kick I learned in Taekwondo, where you like jump with your non-kicking foot up in the air to be switched by the other foot to give it power, like counterbalance as you're like kicking without your feet anchoring you to the ground. And he just goes flying in, and like Danny LaRusso or something. And
I was about to say, are we crane kicking this?
Exactly, yeah. Daniel-san, he gets it in, and it was amazing.
It was a great finish. Like that's obviously really difficult to do in real time.
And it's like there's no other way you really could have gotten that in. He did like the one thing you had to do to convert that. He probably just wanted it that much.
It's a great finish. I mean, he is a creative player, a bit of a goal scorer. It's interesting, and we'll kind of talk about this towards the Player of the Week conversation. A lot of the team wasn't, frankly, very good in this game, including Eze. In fact, he was actually, I recall the people around me, he was taking quite a bit of criticism for his play in the game up until that point. Then he scored. Who cares? Everything was forgiven for a goal. But it's a great finish again for what was a largely, I don't want to say indifferent performance, but yeah, certainly not one up to our typical standards, but one where we kind of gutted out the result. And that's kind of what you have to do, is convert those opportunities. We got it. And then we held on. It got a little nervy there in the second half, especially towards the end, which isn't a surprise. But at the same time, I think that they ended the game with, depending on who you were reading, 0 or 1 shots on goal for the whole game.
Yeah. Which was the goal in contention, or the shot, I should say, in contention for the shots on goal?
To be honest, I don't remember.
Yeah. Because, it was, I mean, it's tough. I wonder how they judge that. Like, because sometimes if it doesn't get close, obviously, like if the keeper catches it standing between the posts, I mean, that's pretty clear. But there are other times where it's not as clear. If you block it or catch it or whatever further away, wasn't it? I don't know. I could see that being a judgment call. But interesting. You don't happen to know? I meant to look this up before we started. What the XG was for each team on this, because I feel like it'd be pretty low for both teams. Like we certainly.
I had seen something. I think what I read was it was both of them were below 1, but I think Arsenal was like a 0.8 or 0.9 or something.
Okay.
Like 1-0 was a fair result. It wasn't any. Okay. It was certainly not. Palace will rue their missed opportunities, but they can't come away from this feeling like they should have won that game. We were the better team. Arsenal was the better team in this one.
Yeah. One thing I noticed that was interesting, noteworthy, there were no yellow cards given during this match. I can't remember the last time that happened. I don't know what the difference was. I don't know if it was just that, they weren't particularly aggressive, so we didn't get particularly aggressive in response or something. I don't know what it was. That was interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure those happen. A lot of times you see yellows given out just at what seemingly random intervals for all kinds of things. So a cardless match is unusual. I feel like we must have seen it over the last few years.
Probably, yeah.
Although I have to say, looking back, watching it, I don't feel like there was anything that particularly warranted. Minus there was a little incident where the ball went out of play and Trossard is staying there and kind of plays around with the ball and kind of tosses it away from the Palace player while he's trying to do the throw in. I'm a little surprised that wasn't. It was. Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised. I did, and I wouldn't have had any room for complaint about that. That would have been I don't. Yeah. Okay. Sure. I guess we're not carding that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah. It was very intentional on his part. Yeah.
Yes. I guess if he gets away with it, what are you going to say? But yeah. But other than that, yeah, I mean, there were fouls throughout. There was certainly some physical play, and there were some moments where we were like, wait a minute, why was there a foul called on that sequence? But overall, I thought, it was a pretty clean game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. However, that didn't prevent some injuries from affecting, especially the second half of this match. I mean, to begin with, the second half began without William Saliba. I mean, I learned from the commentators that Gabriel was injured during the Atlético match, and he was on, and he ended up going 90. But then, Saliba came off at halftime. We ended up with Rice subbed off later on.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I had seen that story like the morning of, as I was getting ready to leave and head out. And I saw, oh, wait a minute, Gabriel was hurt. Apparently, that's why he was subbed out in the Champions League game, was dealing with an injury. And so I was a tiny bit surprised when he was starting. And then, of course, we saw the substitution, Mosquera, coming on, and kind of was like, oh, it must be Gabby. And then you go out there, no, Gabriel's in the huddle that they're before the start, and it was for Saliba, which. And then Rice. I mean, we saw Rice get hurt. We saw him down in the field. My first thought was obviously it looked pretty scary with the way Rice was down, but the fact he got up and kind of walked off on his own, I feel a little better about it. But Calafiore too had to be substituted off for an injury. I mean,
oh yeah.
Apparently this was Arteta's post-game quote. Declan was struggling with a knock he took from the first half, and Ricky as well. And honestly, he doesn't seem to know. Now, granted, this was the article published late Sunday, so who knows if they have more information today. Mm-hmm. But it was, they don't know. And the other one, Saka sort of came off a little slowly in 66 minutes. And Saka apparently was sick all week and hadn't really trained. So it was kind of a rough week, and I wonder how much of that, too, contributed to some of the, you think about a lot of things that go into people's performances. Gabby's dealing with something. Saliba ends up playing part of the game dealing with something. Mm-hmm. Saka's sick, and chances are if Saka's sick, there might be someone else who's not feeling 100%. Apparently Rice got hurt in the first half. So Calafiore got hurt at some point. So there's a lot kind of going on there to lead to these disjointed performances. But I guess we'll see what the story is with them. I don't expect we'll see any of those guys, certainly in the starting lineup on Wednesday for the Carabao Cup. But I would be curious to see about when we hit back to the league play on Sunday, or next week when we're back in the Champions League. Now, again, it's a much lighter part of the schedule coming up these next 3 games. But obviously they're not, if Saliba's not going to sit for 3 straight games unless there's something wrong. Yeah. So,
I mean, the Premier League game is going to be against Burnley. I mean, they're, a recent promotion. I mean, I'm not super scared. Like if we brought out like a cup level squad. It's not the end of the world. We can probably still manage to win with that. But yeah, you'd like everyone to be able to come on at least some of the time. There's a bit of a like kind of nervy moment during, I think it was one of their, no, it was whose corner? It was during our corner.
It was one of ours. Yeah.
Yeah. And Big Gabby, he collided on the post. I think it was the same area roughly where Gyökeres scored the fourth goal from Atlético.
I think we could say this one was a little more centrally located. As someone pointed out, we're a little more worried about little Gabby at this point. Yeah, he went right to the post, and well, first because you see him down, you think, oh no, because he's clearly in pain, and then you watch the replay, and I'm torn because on the one hand, okay, that's not going to be a serious injury. He's going to be fine. Just give him a few minutes. On the other hand, oh no, it's so bad.
On the bright side, I mean, that post, seeing it vibrating in slow motion as he hit it, looks like there's a lot more give to it than I might have otherwise.
I mean, and for that exact reason, I mean, it is a wonder we don't see more players crashing into the posts at times, and there is a little give to them because that you need that. Just think about some of the way players, because they're running at full speed, they're up and all that. They can't hold back. So yeah, that's a lot of ways that can go wrong, and so you would need a little give to those. I mean, they're not.
In contrast, I feel like the goals that my son plays with, I feel like they're more just like solid steel tubes that will not give at all. It's what it feels like.
I mean, but also but also you aren't like 180 pounds of pure muscle like some of these. I mean, again, the speed they're running in and all of that. It takes a lot to cause that kind of vibration, but still, it's they can do that.
Yeah. All right. So you'd also mentioned, in light of injuries, that we got some news about some players possibly returning before long.
So it looked like there are pictures of not training, but certainly doing rehab on-field work for Gabriel Jesus, who we're coming up on a year since he did his knee and had to be out, and that's sort of the timetable for that. He I guess I would say if I'm thinking about that 1 year timetable, I would expect Jesus back with the team potentially in January, which makes it interesting. He was not on the league phase roster that the club submitted to the Champions League, so he would only be available in the Premier League or potentially even the FA Cup. Of course, that'll be at that point. Maybe the Carabao Cup still, hopefully, of course. But, it'd be nice to get him back. He really is, I think. I mean, we think about what we've missed from this team over the last few years, right? Was that goal scorer. I honestly think if he's in the line, if we have him playing, and I'm thinking especially in 23-24, the season where we finished a point shy of City, I think if we have him playing, I think we win the league. I think he was that missing piece for us. I don't know about last year. There were a lot of issues last year. But, if he stays healthy, maybe we do put a little more pressure on Liverpool down the stretch.
Right. I mean, you put him on the team alongside Gyökeres, Eze, some of these other players we've brought in who can also like contribute. Kai Havertz gets better. Yeah. Like all of a sudden you have a lot of players who can score goals for us. I can see that making a big difference.
Yeah. And we've talked about Gyökeres and what he's done and hasn't done and how he's played. I mean, he's also basically played every minute at the 9, in the major competitive fixtures. He's taken a lot of physical punishment. He's not a small guy. He's definitely fighting his way through a lot of things, but I think he's done some yeoman's work in that regard. But having Jesus back, I think would be a huge boost to this team. And then the other boost they need, and frankly, this was another reason I think they were a little sloppy in a lot of ways against Palace, is Odegaard. I think what I'd seen was it's unlikely Odegaard comes back until after the November international break.
Okay.
So we still have a little ways to go with him. Obviously, we need a fully armed and operational Martin Odegaard to really to make sure that we're getting the most out of this team offensively. And he's a guy who can do a lot to help us break down those low blocks. Eze's a great creative player, but not the same kind of midfield passer that Odegaard is in terms of unlocking those defensive formations.
Fully armed, is that a reference to it being a shoulder injury that took him down?
I'm not here to. I'm not going to follow that one up.
Who's your player of the week this week?
It's such an interesting one, right? Because in some ways you could say everybody was great against Atleti, and really nobody was that great against Palace. But I'm going to go with Gabriel. Getting the opening goal, especially if because I do think he was dealing with some kind of knock, and then to play 90 minutes against Palace, a part of another clean sheet. I think he's just such a rock back there. He's such an underrated. It's hard to say he's underrated because he's arguably among the best central defenders in the world.
Yeah,
and just I think he's sort of solidifies. His goal opened up the Atleti game, and I think his performance was important in keeping Palace off the board. So I'm going to go with Gabriel for this week.
Yeah, no, good call. Definitely, he was on my list. I mean, some other players on my list who I didn't pick. Jurrien Timber. I mean, what a player. He's been so amazing, especially in the Atlético match. A little less in the Palace match, but still good. Still had his moments, definitely. Saka, like you said, was amazing against Madrid. Ultimately, I'm gonna, like you said, Palace is almost a non-factor. Everyone was kind of equally not great. It was a lackluster match, but I've asked the question a couple weeks running, like, how do we feel about Victor Gyökeres? How is he doing for us? I'm starting to see a lot more of the potential there. I'm seeing the pressure he puts on their defense, just relentlessly pursuing them. That we haven't had a player who does that, like, every transition, every time, just like always does that, just running the full length of the field up and down and still going 90 and still having it in him to score 2 late goals. He's really, really something. I'm starting to appreciate him more. I still want him to connect more of his opportunities, but I'm starting to see why they brought him in.
I have to say that the Palace game was the one where you actually notice some of his limitations, that he's not terribly fast. There were 1 or 2 plays where, like, the ball comes in and you want to see him outrace the defender and kind of blow past him, and he just doesn't have that kind of foot speed.
Right.
He does a great job making runs. I guess you'd say more of a sprinter in the sense that he can find holes and make good runs through defenders. But sort of having to beat a guy one-on-one like that isn't exactly his forte. But
no.
Overall, he works his butt off. You're glad to see him get those, get the goal to kind of as a reward for that work. And hopefully, as we start getting attacking players back in, we'll start to see he gets a little bit of rest, and we also continue to see a little more in the way of end product.
Yeah. As we close out this week, let's reflect on our place in the tables for the competitions that we're currently in. So, for one thing, the Champions League table, where we're in, what is it, a 5-way tie for first place on points. We sit in 4th on goal difference. Looking good.
Yeah, I mean, it's 3 games in, and that's the category of teams you want to be with. Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Arsenal, Real Madrid. Those are your top 5 right now.
Yeah.
And then Borussia Dortmund and Manchester City right behind them, and then you're throwing in, the teams at 6 points: Newcastle, Barcelona, Liverpool, Chelsea, Sporting. I mean, that's It really is interesting to me. The top of the table is less interesting to me than at the bottom. The 2 teams at the bottom, 3 losses in 3 games, is Benfica and Ajax. Now, granted, Ajax last won the title like 30 years ago. It's been a while. I don't know if Benfica's ever actually won the Champions League, but they're consistently a very good and experienced contender. So for the 2 of them to be sitting at 0. Ajax has 1 goal in 3 games. They've conceded 11. It's been a rough go for the 2 of them, and I think they're both, in a little bit of danger at this point. I don't want to say not qualifying. Right now, they're at 0 points. The last qualifier is Union Saint-Gilloise, who has 3 points, so they're not exactly out of it. But this is certainly well below the level they will expect of themselves. Juventus is another team on 2 points that is not even currently in a knockout phase spot.
Right.
Meanwhile, there's Karabakh of Azerbaijan, currently sits 13th. So Who knows? I mean, there's, it's crazy. I have to say, I'll add in this. I saw they listed a stat that English teams scored 19 goals on the third match day across the 6 games they played. Now, obviously, they said it's the most ever by a single country on a match day. Now, obviously, that's driven by the fact there are 6 English teams in the Champions League, which is more than has ever been in there. Yeah. However, my favorite part about that stat was that the 19 goals were scored by 5 different teams, and the team that didn't score was Spurs.
Yeah. Well, they're not doing great in the Champions League, but in the Premier League, they're actually number 3 right now, right?
Yes. If we switch over to the table in the Premier League, we are top of it by 4 points. We're 4 points clear of the team everyone predicted in second place, of course, Bournemouth.
Right.
Spurs are in third, and then Sunderland is in fourth. So notice we've now named the 4 Champions League automatic qualifying spots and have not named Manchester City, who is fifth, or Liverpool, who is currently 7th, losing their 4th game in a row. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was a huge weekend for us, obviously, to get the result, to kind of grind out that result against Palace. But also, Liverpool lost on Saturday I believe that was to Bournemouth. They lost that game. They're 4th in a row in the league.
Brentford.
See, I always do that. But they lost. That's right. It was Brentford. They lost. And then City lost on Sunday. They played the same time we did. They lost to Aston Villa. Like, this was a really big moment for us to take advantage of an opportunity to sort of put ourselves in a position to really seize control. And look, Bournemouth's a great story. Sunderland's a great story. Spurs is obviously better than they were last year. I still think, I mean, look, Bournemouth's in second with 18 points. City has 16. Liverpool's got 15. Like, we're talking 3 points gap at most. I think at the end of the year, it's still going to be Arsenal, City, and Liverpool in those top 3 spots. However, it's good to see these kinds of teams. I think Bournemouth and Sunderland, I think, will just they won't be able to hold this for the season. I think Spurs is going to struggle too. I don't think they have the depth to really compete on all 4 fronts the way the big 3 do. I'm still not sure what to make of Manchester United. Obviously, they've got 2 wins now. They beat Liverpool. They beat Brighton. They're actually ahead of Liverpool currently, which is kind of crazy. But maybe it shouldn't be. There's Chelsea is in 9th. Yeah, it's an interesting table so far, but right now we are 4 points clear. We've conceded 3 goals through 9 games. We're about a quarter of the way through the season. It is not unreasonable right now to think about the possibility. It's way off in the future to think about the possibility of that goals against record that we talked about. Chelsea said it with 15. There's something to shoot for.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think of Sunderland's chance of bringing Xhaka to the Champions League?
You mean Xhaka bringing Sunderland to the Champions League? I don't think they'll. I think you're most likely to see. I think at this point Sunderland's going to feel pretty good about staying up. Like, I think if you're obviously they need a couple more results, but at 5 wins, I mean, that's not a bad. That's 17 points. Is a pretty good chunk of what they will need to stay up. Also, like, Wolves looks terrible. Wolves is at the bottom. They look terrible. West Ham and Forest. And maybe they right the ship. I think Nuno's a good hire for West Ham. I think Sean Dyche is probably a good hire for Forest, but he's now their 3rd manager this season. Yeah. And Forest is in European competition, which is a lot of pressure on your roster. At Leeds doesn't look terrible. There's Sunderland there. Who else was? And Burnley's kind of just above the a little bit of a relegation, but they don't. None of those teams look out of place. None of the promoted teams look out of place. Yeah, and there are a couple of Wolves in particular, but West Ham and Forest too. Fulham, we said a lot of nice things about Fulham coming into last week. They haven't looked that great to this point of the season either. So, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out by the time we get to the holidays and we get through the holiday break and get to the halfway point. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So what is coming up for us next week?
So 2 games next week, once again. On Wednesday is the fourth round of the Carabao Cup. We are home to Brighton and Hove Albion. I don't know how this one's going to go. Brighton's been a solid team. They've been tough to compete against. We generally seem to beat them, but it's a tough game. A lot more open, though, it feels like. So I feel pretty good about our chances of scoring goals. Obviously, I expect to see a heavily rotated side. It's a knockout competition, so I don't care how we do it as long as we advance. It's really what it comes down to. Stay tuned afterwards, by the way. So we are not the last game. The last game to kick off in the round is Newcastle and Spurs, who kick off about 15 minutes after ours does. My guess, because this is typically what happens, is they will do the 5th round draw after the conclusion of the Newcastle Spurs game, probably televised on whoever was televising that game. And then, obviously, if we lose to Brighton, which is, I think, on the cards, obviously, I don't care who gets drawn in the 5th round, whatever. But if we win, you'll want to keep an eye on who we'll end up with in the 5th round, which I believe won't be until December. I think they go the month of November without the Carabao Cup again.
All right.
So that's Wednesday, and then Sunday, back to the Premier League. We'll face Burnley. I don't really know much about Burnley this year, to be honest. They are one of the few teams to beat Sunderland, so that's something. But as we said, they're down in 16th. They're on 10 points. Scored 12, conceded 17, which tells me it's high event. It's a high event game. We're going to see a lot of shots, a lot of opportunities. They've got 3 wins so far, which isn't terrible. I'm looking through their roster. A couple of names I was recognizing. Let's see, who am I looking at here? Few names I recognize: Martin Dubravka, the Slovak keeper who was with Newcastle for a while. Is that Kyle Walker? Oh yeah, Kyle Walker plays for them now. That's right. Who else is there? Tuanzebe is not bad. Because Perez is okay. He's young. A couple of interesting names. And I'm not going to run through the whole roster, but a couple of interesting names on here. But a team that we should feel confident against. I feel pretty good about this. Even going on the road, I'd happily take a 1-0 and walk away from that one. Although with the way that game's going, 2-0 seems like it could be 2 or 3 might be on the table if their team concedes that many goals.
Yeah. All right. Well, where can viewers find those matches?
Yes, of course. I forgot that. All streaming this week. Paramount Plus for the Carabao Cup, and then Peacock for Burnley and the Premier League.
All right. Thanks for joining us at Gooner U. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to the podcast version of our show on Apple, Spotify, and some other places. If you're only listening, try watching us on YouTube with the link in the show notes. Your homework for today is to tell a friend about our show, or, go crazy and tell a whole bunch. Spreading the word means the world to us, and we truly appreciate it. We record the show using Zencaster. If you'd like to try it out, you can support Gooner U by signing up using the link in the description, which also has links to everything we talked about and our socials. Again, my name is Dove, and you can find me on Twitter at Dove Frankel. With me, as always, is Keith, and you can find him in a pub watching Arsenal matches.
Set piece again. Ole, ole.